The kiss lasted only seconds, but in those seconds, she saved his life. Her trembling lips pressed against his, not from desire but from pure survival instinct. The parking lot lights flickered above them as thunder rolled in the distance. 2 suited men walked by, scanning faces. They looked once, then twice, and finally shook their heads. Just another couple, one muttered before turning away. As their footsteps faded, Amara pulled back, breathless, rain clinging to her eyelashes. "Sir, please, don't move," she whispered. The billionaire before her, Daniel Harrington, was frozen, his pride and logic battling the impossible. A moment ago, he'd been waiting for his driver. Now, the black maid he'd barely noticed was the reason he was still alive. How did it come to this? 2 weeks earlier, the marble floors of the Harrington estate gleamed like mirrors, each reflection reminding Amara that she didn't belong here. She'd taken the maid job out of desperation. After her parents' accident, she had to feed her little brother and sister. Every breath in this mansion carried the weight of judgment. "Careful with that vase," barked Mrs. Harrington, her red heels clicking. "It costs more than your entire life." "Yes, ma'am," Amara said softly, eyes lowered. She didn't argue. She never did. From the corner office upstairs, Daniel watched. He was the kind of man the city called untouchable. Tall, calm, dressed in authority. But beneath the surface, his world was chaos. His investors were nervous, his younger brother reckless, and his own home had become a battlefield of entitlement. And now, this maid. He didn't know why he kept noticing her, how carefully she moved, how she never complained even when insulted. There was something unsettling about her calm, something that made him uneasy. That night, while Amara folded linen in the servants' quarters, she whispered to her siblings, "Someday we'll have a place where no one calls us names, okay? Just keep praying." The twins nodded sleepily, clutching her arms. But upstairs, a different conversation brewed. Daniel's younger brother, Eric, leaned against the balcony talking to his girlfriend, a woman too beautiful to hide her venom. "He still controls the company, but once we get him out of the picture," she said with a smirk. Eric smiled coldly. "Then everything he owns is mine." Amara passed below, unseen, her mop bucket rattling on the tiles. She caught a single sentence. "Make sure the men know the meeting time." Her heart froze. She didn't know it yet, but those words would drag her into a storm she couldn't escape, a storm that would test her courage, her dignity, and her belief that kindness could still survive in a cruel world. The Harrington mansion sat high above the city, white pillars, glass walls, a fountain shaped like an angel pouring endless water. To outsiders it looked like heaven. To Amara it was a cage made of marble and judgment. Each morning she woke before dawn, pressing her palms together, whispering a prayer over her siblings asleep on the narrow cot beside her. She'd sneak through the quiet hallways with her cleaning cart before the family stirred, scrubbing away every trace of the night before. Wine stains, cigar ash, pride. It wasn't the work that broke her, it was the silence. Every thank you she never heard, every whisper of the maid behind her back. At breakfast, the house smelled of butter and power. Mrs. Harrington scrolled through her tablet. "Daniel, we should replace her soon," she said flatly. I caught her humming gospel music in the hallway again. "It's unsettling." Daniel didn't look up from his coffee. "She works hard." "Let her be." The comment made his mother's eyes narrow. "You're growing soft, dear." Soft. That word stuck with him longer than it should have. He wasn't soft. He was a survivor, a man who had built an empire from the ground up. But lately, the sound of Amara's footsteps in the morning had become an odd kind of comfort, like proof that someone in this house still remembered what humility sounded like. That evening, Amara was polishing the glass doors when she noticed Daniel's brother, Eric, pacing the study. His voice carried through the half-open door. "Don't worry, the meeting is at the Ivy Lounge. He'll be alone. Make it look like a robbery." Her heart stopped. The mop clattered softly against the marble. She froze, pressing herself against the wall. Who were they talking about? What robbery? Eric lowered his voice, but she caught enough to know danger was near, and Daniel was the target. When his footsteps faded, she sank to her knees, shaking. Her mind screamed, "If you tell anyone, they'll call you a liar." A maid accusing the boss's own brother. Yet silence would mean murder. She spent the night pacing the servants' quarters, her little brother tugging at her sleeve. "Amara, what's wrong?" "Nothing, baby. Go back to sleep." But her eyes never closed. She prayed for courage she didn't have. The next morning, Daniel stepped into the kitchen, tie half-knotted, briefcase in hand. "You're early," he said, surprised to find her cleaning already. "Yes, sir. Just finishing up." He paused. For the first time, he noticed the faint burn mark on her wrist, the same shape that had haunted his dreams for months. "What happened there?" he asked. Amara glanced down. "Oh, this?" "Birthmark, sir. I've had it since I was born." Something in his chest twisted, a memory flickering. His father telling a story about a woman with that same mark who once saved his life overseas. He shook the thought away. Strange coincidence, he murmured. Before he left, Amara swallowed hard. "Sir, about your meeting today, maybe you shouldn't go alone." He frowned. "And why is that?" "I just have a bad feeling." Daniel gave a short, humorless laugh. "You sound like my grandmother." "Don't worry, Amara. In my world, fear is a luxury." He left. Amara stood there, tears welling, watching the car roll down the driveway. Fear might be a luxury to him, but for her, it was survival. That night, as thunder cracked over the city, she would discover just how right her fear had been. And by morning, one kiss would change everything. Rain came early that week, soft at first, like a warning whispered by the clouds. The Harrington mansion was quiet except for the hum of distant thunder. But peace was an illusion. Inside those marble walls, deceit moved like perfume, unseen yet impossible to ignore. Amara had spent the morning ironing tablecloths, her mind replaying Eric's words again and again. Make it look like a robbery. Each syllable burned in her memory. But how could she tell Daniel the truth when he didn't even trust her enough to listen? She was just the maid. When she brought his lunch tray that afternoon, Daniel sat behind his desk, phone pressed to his ear. "Yes, I'll attend alone." "It's a small business dinner," he said firmly. Her throat tightened. She couldn't stay silent any longer. "Sir," she began softly. He looked up, distracted. "Yes. I know I'm just a worker here, but I heard something. About your meeting tonight. I think someone's planning to hurt you." The pen in his hand froze midair. Then he chuckled, dismissive. "Amara, you've been watching too many films. My brother may be lazy, but he's not a criminal. But I heard—" "That's enough." His voice was sharp now. "Don't bring family gossip into my office again." Her lips parted, but no words came. "Understood?" "Yes, sir." She turned away, heart pounding. Every instinct told her he was walking into a trap. But what power did she have against the walls of his disbelief? Upstairs, Eric leaned against the hallway railing, smirking. He'd overheard everything. "That maid talks too much," he murmured to Felicia, his lover and Daniel's fiancée. Felicia's eyes glimmered like glass. "Then maybe it's time she learns her place. What do you have in mind?" Felicia smiled darkly. "Something that will keep her busy. Too busy to warn him again." That evening, while Daniel prepared to leave for his meeting, Amara was handed a task she'd never been asked to do before, cleaning the entire chandelier room before morning. "Every crystal spotless," Felicia ordered coldly. Amara looked up. "But ma'am, it's already late." Felicia leaned close, her perfume sweet but poisonous. "Did you not hear me, girl? Every single one." The chandelier sparkled mockingly above her as she climbed the ladder, cloth trembling in her tired hands. Hours passed. Her shoulders burned, her palms blistered, but she didn't stop. Each wipe was a prayer, that somehow Daniel would come home safe. Downstairs, Felicia slipped into Eric's car. "He's at the Ivy Lounge," she whispered. "The men are waiting." Eric nodded, his grin cruel. "Once he's gone, everything he owns is ours." But fate, as it always does, had other plans. Near midnight, Amara stumbled off the ladder, dizzy from exhaustion. The twins were asleep on the floor nearby, waiting for her. Just as she reached for her bucket, she heard muffled voices echoing from the hall. Eric's voice. "The driver's late. He'll leave in 10 minutes. Make sure the car doesn't return." Felicia's giggle followed. "And the maid. She's probably still scrubbing glass." They laughed and walked away. Amara's eyes widened. There was still time. She dropped her cloth, snatched her coat, and ran barefoot into the storm. Lightning cracked across the sky as she sprinted down the dark street, heart hammering. Her mind screamed, "He won't believe you!" But you can't let him die. Somewhere between the roar of thunder and the pounding of her feet, Amara made a choice, one that would shatter every rule of class, race, and fear. If words couldn't save him, then actions would. The rain fell harder now, each drop slicing through the night like shattered glass. Amara's shoes slapped against the wet pavement as she reached the restaurant Daniel had gone to. The glowing sign read, "The Ivy Lounge." Elegant, expensive, and quiet, just as she'd feared. Inside, behind the tall windows, she saw him. Daniel sat alone at a corner table scrolling through his phone, a half-finished drink before him. Amara's heart pounded. He's still here. Thank God. She stepped through the revolving doors, drenched, shivering. The hostess frowned at her uniform, but Amara ignored her and walked straight toward the table. "Amara?" Daniel blinked, startled. "What on earth are you doing here?" She forced a smile, trying to steady her voice. "I came to apologize, sir. For earlier, I shouldn't have spoken that way." Daniel sighed, setting his phone down. "You came all this way in the rain for that?" "Yes," she said softly. "And because—" Her voice caught. Behind him, 2 men in black coats entered. They did an order. They didn't sit. Their eyes scanned the room, sharp and deliberate. Amara's stomach twisted. She recognized one of them. She'd seen him outside Eric's car once. The other was on the phone, whispering, "Targets alone. Corner table." Her breath hitched. "It's happening. Right now." She leaned closer, voice trembling. "Sir, please, listen to me. We need to leave." Daniel frowned. "What are you talking about?" "Please, just trust me. Those men." He turned slightly, and that tiny motion caught their attention. One of them nodded to the other. They started walking toward him. Amara's mind raced. If they see his face, it's over. She stood abruptly, knocking over her chair. "Amara, what?" Without another thought, she leaned in and kissed him. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't romantic. It was survival. Her hands trembled against his collar, her heart hammering so loud she thought it might echo through the room. Daniel froze, completely stunned. The world seemed to shrink to the space between their breaths. The 2 men paused at the entrance of the section. One muttered under his breath, "Wrong guy. He's not alone." The other shrugged, turning away. "Come on. The target's by himself, not some couple making out in public." They left. Amara's lips parted, breath shallow. She pulled back slowly, rainwater glistening on her skin. "Sir," she whispered, voice shaking. "Please, don't move yet." Daniel stared at her, speechless, his mind trying to piece together what had just happened. What was that?" He finally stammered. Amara's eyes darted toward the doorway. The men were gone. "I'll explain everything, but not here," she said urgently. "We have to go, now." Outside, thunder cracked as Daniel led her to the car. His voice was tight, angry, confused. "Start talking, Amara. Why were you even here?" "I told you something bad was coming," she said breathlessly. "Your brother, he's behind it. I heard him planning everything." Daniel's jaw clenched. "Enough. Don't drag my family into your imagination again." "But Enough," he snapped. "You've crossed a line tonight. When we get home, you'll pack your things and leave by morning." The words hit her like cold water. After all she'd risked, the running, the fear, the kiss that saved his life, she was still just the maid. Lightning flashed across the windshield, lighting up her tears. She turned away, staring at the storm outside, whispering to herself, "I may have lost my job tonight, but at least he's still alive." Neither of them knew that before sunrise. The truth would explode, and the storm that had begun tonight would destroy everything built on lies. The rain hadn't stopped by morning. It drummed on the mansion roof like a slow funeral march while Amara folded her few belongings into a torn bag. Her siblings sat beside her, half asleep, unaware that their lives were about to change again. Downstairs, Daniel's voice echoed through the hall. "Pack her things. I want her out before breakfast." Mrs. Harrington smirked from behind her teacup. "Finally, you're coming to your senses." Amara stepped into the corridor, face pale but composed. "Sir, please, let me explain." Daniel didn't look at her. "No explanations. You invented lies about my family. You embarrassed me in public. You're done here." Her fingers clenched the strap of her bag. "I heard them plotting, sir. If I'd been wrong, you'd be dead right now." He turned sharply. "Enough. I don't want another word." The butler opened the door. Cold air swept in. She bowed her head. "Thank you for giving me work when no one else would." Then she walked out into the rain, 3 small hands gripping hers. By noon, gossip had spread across the household. Eric leaned in the doorway, watching them disappear through the gates. "Problem solved," he whispered. Felicia slipped her arm around him. "And tonight, so is Daniel." They laughed. Quiet, cruel laughter that seemed to please the storm. 2 days later, Amara found work scrubbing floors in a downtown hotel. Her palms bled, her back ached, but she felt strangely lighter. At least here, no one called her names. The twins played in the corner of the janitor's closet, drawing with broken pencils. "Will we ever go back, Auntie Mara?" one asked. "No," she said softly. "We only go forward." But that night, as she carried trash out to the alley, 2 men passed by. "The meeting's tonight," one muttered. "Mr. Harrington's driver'll drop him at the pier. Boss says that's where we grab him." Her heart slammed against her ribs. "Kahand." "No, Daniel." She dropped the bag, sprinted back inside, and shook her siblings awake. "Get your shoes on, now." "What's wrong?" "Someone's going to hurt him." Across town, Daniel adjusted his cufflinks in the mirror of his car. He should have been relieved. The problem was gone, the maid fired. But her words haunted him like ghosts behind glass. "If I'd been wrong, you'd be dead right now." He rubbed his temples. The meeting was minutes away. As he reached for his phone, an old photograph slid from his wallet, his late father shaking hands with a woman. On her wrist was the same strange mark as Amara's. His chest tightened. "It can't be." Headlights flashed in his rearview mirror. Another car, too close, too slow. Something felt off. He started the engine, pulling onto the main road, but his phone buzzed with a single text. "Don't go. They're coming for you. Amara." Before he could reply, the streetlights flickered. 3 dark SUVs appeared in his mirror. Tires screeched. Doors flew open. Men in masks spilled out. Daniel's pulse exploded in his ears. No, no, no. Then, through the chaos, he saw her. Running through the rain, barefoot, soaked, her small frame lit by the headlights. "Get out of the car," she screamed. "They're coming for you." Bullets cracked the air as she reached him, pulling the door open. "Trust me this time," she pleaded. For the first time, he did. He grabbed her hand, and together they ran into the maze of alleys, the triplets chasing behind. Behind them, the SUVs roared like beasts. They dove behind dumpsters as sparks from gunfire lit the night. Daniel's breath tore through his chest. "Everything you said, it was true," he rasped. Amara pressed her hand against his arm, eyes wet but steady. "Because even when you don't trust people like me, we still choose to protect you." Somewhere above, thunder rolled like applause for the brave. And in that moment, Daniel finally saw her. Not as a maid, not as a burden, but as the woman who had risked everything for a man who never looked twice at her humanity. The alley smelled of rust and rain. Steam rose from the drains as the 4 of them crouched behind a stack of crates. Amara clutching the triplets, Daniel gripping a broken pipe like a weapon he barely knew how to use. The kidnapper's footsteps echoed closer. "Split up," one ordered. He couldn't have gone far. Lightning flashed. Their shadows stretched across the brick wall. Daniel whispered, "We won't outrun them." Amara's voice was steady, almost serene. "Then we outthink them." She pointed to a service gate half hidden behind trash bins. "Through there. When I say run, run." When the men turned the corner, Amara hurled a metal lid against the opposite wall. The crash exploded through the alley. "There!" one shouted. The second he moved, she grabbed Daniel's arm. "Now!" They bolted through the gate into the narrow courtyard of an abandoned print shop. The triplets stumbled but didn't cry. They had learned bravery from watching their sister survive humiliation. For the first time, Daniel saw what courage looked like without bodyguards or money, and it humbled him. They collapsed behind an overturned table, hearts pounding. Daniel looked at her wrist again. Even in the dim light, the strange crescent-shaped mark glowed faintly. The same image from his father's old stories, the woman who pulled him from the fire in Lagos 94. He whispered almost to himself, "That mark. My father used to call it the sign of grace. He said the woman who saved him wore it here." Amara frowned. My mother had one too. She died when I was little. The realization hit him like thunder. Your mother was Lillian Adeyemi. Her eyes widened. How do you know that name? She was the nurse who saved my father's life during that hotel explosion. He searched for her for years. Silence filled the rain-soaked air. The prophecy of his dreams, the mark in his nightmares, it all made sense now. The woman he'd dismissed as a servant carried the bloodline of the one who had once saved his family. The clap of applause broke the stillness. Eric stepped from the shadows, umbrella in hand, Felicia beside him in her soaked red coat. Behind them, the remaining thugs raised their weapons. Well, isn't this poetic? Eric sneered. Big brother hiding with the help. Felicia smirked. You always did like strays. Daniel stood, pushing Amara and the children behind him. This is where it ends, Eric. You won't touch them. Eric laughed. You still think you're in control? Before another word, flashing blue lights painted the walls. Sirens wailed. Patrol cars skidded into the alley. Neighbors had called after hearing gunfire. Felicia cursed under her breath. Eric tried to run, but officers surrounded them. The kidnappers dropped their weapons one by one. Daniel exhaled a shuddering breath. The nightmare was over. An officer approached. Mr. Harrington, are you all right? Daniel looked back at Amara. Thanks to her. As the police hauled his brother and Felicia into separate cars, rain washed their expensive disguises into mud. Eric glared through the window. You'll regret this. Daniel shook his head slowly. No, little brother. I'll finally sleep. Later that morning, the sun broke through the clouds. In the golden light, Daniel turned to Amara and the triplets. You saved my life, twice. I fired you because I was blind, because I let pride decide who was worthy of truth. But from today forward, you'll never clean another floor in this city. Her eyes widened. Sir, I don't understand. You will, he said softly. I'm offering you a position, my personal assistant. I trust you with everything I own. The triplets cheered. Amara covered her mouth, tears spilling freely. Why me? She whispered. Because when fate came for me, you didn't hesitate. And because sometimes, grace comes from the hands we least expect. He glanced at the faint mark on her wrist. It seems your family was destined to save mine. The city finally slept that night, washed clean by the storm. But inside the Harrington mansion, something new had awakened. A quiet dignity that had been missing for years. Daniel stood at the balcony of his rebuilt study, watching the sunrise. His life, once armored in arrogance, felt lighter now, as if someone had taken the weight of pride off his chest. Behind him, Amara approached slowly, her wrist wrapped in a bandage where the mark still shimmered faintly beneath her skin. You wanted to see me, sir? She asked softly. Daniel turned, smiling for the first time in days, not the smile of a billionaire but of a man finally at peace. Yes, Amara, I wanted to thank you properly. You already did, she replied, eyes lowered. No, he said gently. I promoted you out of gratitude. But this, he stepped closer. This is thank you for reminding me that humanity is richer than wealth. Amara blinked, tears threatening to spill. I only did what anyone with a heart would have done. He shook his head. No, you did what people with courage do. Outside, the triplets laughed in the garden, tiny bursts of joy that echoed like music through the house. Daniel watched them for a moment, then turned back to her. Your brothers are enrolled in the city's best school. Their future is taken care of. Consider it my apology for every time I look down on you. Amara covered her mouth, overwhelmed. Sir, I don't know how to thank you. You already have, he said softly. For a moment, silence filled the air between them, the kind of silence that says more than words ever could. Then, almost shyly, he asked, That night in the parking lot, when you kissed me, was it just to save me? Amara hesitated, her cheeks warm. At first, yes, but somewhere in between fear and faith, it became real. Daniel smiled, his voice low. Good, because it's been real for me ever since. He reached out, brushing a tear from her cheek. Let's give this, us, a chance. She nodded, unable to speak, and for the first time, the woman who once scrubbed his floors stood beside him as an equal, not by title, but by grace. Months later, Eric and Felicia's trial ended with a guilty verdict, 20 years each for conspiracy and attempted murder. As their headlines faded, another story rose quietly in their place, of a maid who saved a billionaire's life and changed the way he saw the world. Sometimes the people we overlook carry the light that saves us, and sometimes a single act of kindness, even one born from fear, can rewrite destiny. If this story touched your heart, hit subscribe right now, and because on this channel, we tell stories that prove kindness has no color and respect has no price. Tell us in the comments, what did you learn from Amara's courage? And remember, dignity always wins.